When the Lights Go Out by Dead Palette.
What would you do if the space you were in just changed completely? Vague question, I know, so I'll give some specifics. What if you went to a 90s themed pizza party at a kids arcade, visited the restroom, and returned to the party to find all the arcade machines off, and everyone acting depressed and despondent? This actually happened to me. It felt like reality bent into a monochrome version of itself. It was the most confused I've ever felt. Let's back up. We need to talk about expectations. When you have autism, it's important to develop habits of managing expectations. For instance, when I'm going to a house party, I need to go through a mental checklist of things to expect. Will there be people there I know? People I don't know? Loud music? Strong food smells? Or snack foods? Fog or strobe lights? By having expectations and knowing that things might change, I've put myself into a mentally resilient place. Some people might hear that and laugh. Others might hear that and realize it's a strategy they might need to implement into their life despite not being autistic or neurodivergent. I was invited to a 90s themed pizza party at a somewhat nearby arcade. I was invited by what I would describe as an acquaintance group. Not a friend group, but a group of people I know well. I didn't know who was running the event, how big it would be, if we need to pay for each arcade machine, if there'd be no alcohol, or hard drugs. No clue if we would need to dress in 90s fashion, and worst of all, I didn't know if the place would have that suffocating cardboard pizza smell. Ugh. Two actual friends, not acquaintances, were going regardless. So the night of the event came, and I felt mentally stable and ready for an unpredictable atmosphere. So we drove 30 minutes to the rural area where this arcade was. The place was a giant desert beige brown box made of concrete sat between a hipster microbrewery and a live bait shop. So a place of rapid change where boomer culture and zoomer culture clashed. I already told myself I'd be down for new expectations, and I was getting into it. We saw a few 90s kids outside, from a group of 3 to 4 women dressed like Clarissa Explains It All to a nearby group of Nirvana enthusiasts. And even that one ever-present guy in a t-shirt with a teal and purple jazz paper solo cup design on it, you know? For me and my friends' efforts, we were dressed in bright hip-hop style windbreakers. Luckily, they fit pretty well. Hand-me-downs from older brothers. This was already paying off. The risk of feeling anxious was lessening already. Sure, the building didn't look promising, but the patrons of this party were coated in the drip, the aesthetic. They were making fetch a thing. My friends, we'll call them Rod and Ben, because those are their names, got in line. We chatted with some radical people while waiting to get in, including a lady that complained about being turned away initially due to wearing roller skates, forcing her to go back to the car and change into a very not 90s pair of Crocs, and a nice white gentleman dressed as Ryu from Street Fighter, despite being blonde. I'm just saying, get a black wig or a red gi. Inside was bathed in a glow of purple and pink neon lights. It was like being pulled into another dimension. My first thought seeing all the 90s era glow-in-the-dark carpet with the bright squiggles and dots and all the time-accurate arcade machines was, is this really a one-night event? As awesome as it was, the sheer volume of people was causing me a little bit of anxiety. For a space that must have been built for around 300 people, there were probably about 500, maybe even more. Each arcade cabinet had people huddled around it, cheering and jeering players. The roller rink was being used as a dance floor that had acts happening that'd be illegal in a school zone. And the bar. Oh geez, the bar. The word bar is short for barricade. It's used to separate patrons from the alcohol. This bar was about to break. The volume of orders was too high. We approached and Ben asked for someone holding a drink if they had a bar menu up there. This person shouted, "Orange is tequila, blue is vodka," over a Backstreet Boys song. Alright. Not 10 seconds later, a chain of hands began handing drinks back to the outer rows of people waiting to order. Some blue, some orange. It was as if the bartenders were teachers saying take one and pass the rest back, but instead of worksheets, it was low-quality well liquor with a sugary mixture. Noticing people were dispersing when they got their drinks, I realized taking a drink and moving away was the best thing to help these overwhelmed bartenders. With 3 drinks we presumed were tequila sunrises, we made our way back to the Tekken 2 machine to destroy whatever casuals dared approach. After about 40 minutes of whooping people on Tekken 2 and sucking down tequila too sweet to be mixed with real orange juice, I felt I had a slight headache. I should have waited for blue. Blue is good for you. I began to think that the tequila was some sort of garage swill. Or maybe it was the sugar. I stepped away to one of the many watering stations in the neon and black sea of beeps and boops and finish hymns. I was already a little drunk. Bear in mind, this party was already popping off with 1 a.m. levels of stupid, and it was hardly 8 p.m. Yet, we entered the building just after 7, and it was already shaping to be, as they said in the 90s, off the hook. Sucking down tiny plastic cup after tiny plastic cup of ice water, my head was feeling soothed, and suddenly, my pain versus drunk meter started feeling good. I was no longer interested in bullying fighting game casuals at a game that they hadn't played in at least 20 years. Instead, I made my way to the dance floor. There was a little bit of missing time in between that decision and me being on the dance floor, shaking and doing my thing. Someone had a liter bottle of vodka, not 750 milliliters, a liter, and was pouring it straight into people's mouths. Finally, something delicious, and devoid of artificial sugars and grain alcohol. Now, this was going smoothly. I had no real control over my body, and at this point, I had gotten drunk way quicker than I intended to. But I knew that if I stopped drinking for an hour or so, I'd be fine. I was in a safe environment, and then I was on the ground. Ears ringing so much I couldn't hear the Shakira playing in the background. My nose and the back of my head was in pain. Opening my eyes, the whole dance floor was over me, including a woman dressed as Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, mouthing, "I'm sorry," directly over me. Slowly, I was helped to my feet by a group of people too drunk to be rendering any sort of medical aid. Catwoman took me to a bench and apologized for elbowing my nose. From what I could piece together, she had started grinding against me without me realizing. Bada boom bada bing, we collided, and initially there wasn't any blood. Then there was a drip, then more. I was still dizzy, and so Catwoman led me to the bathroom, while the world shifted and spun in a way that it never had for me before. Catwoman, a woman-cat hybrid, took me out of the 90s neon pocket dimension and into what we'll call the 90s Kmart bathroom dimension. The sound of blue dabba-dee-dabba-die faded into the fluorescent hum, and the light burned my eyes. I felt like that fish in SpongeBob getting his eyes seared. Closing my eyes, I began to clean my face of the blood exiting my nose. I asked Catwoman if she could bring me my friends. She replied right away, and I heard her scurry off to find them. It must have taken me 5 minutes for me to realize she didn't know who my friends were, so I would have to do this on my own. I forced myself to open up my eyes as best I could. Not only was the bathroom empty of people, it was empty of urinals. I was in the women's restroom. Thank you, Catwoman. Thank you. I needed to find my friends at the Tekken 2 cabinet and leave. I didn't want to be the one to end the night early, but things happen. I crawled out of the bathroom, literally. My equilibrium was all off, to find the building empty of neon and sound. No optimism of 90s consumerism, no beeps, no boops, no finish hymns, just the faint glow of the carpet's design. There were people standing there, doing nothing in particular, like they were robots that got turned off. Mind you, they weren't motionless. They moved and swayed, just idle, doing nothing. I wondered if I was in some sort of danger. It was dark and I could barely stand, let alone run. I hobbled along the way, asking people as I moved towards the Tekken machine if something was wrong. No one answered. They didn't even look my way. People sat in the pizza parlor, not eating. The dance floor was packed and full of many of the same people I saw earlier. At least I think. There was some missing time, but I remember most of the time. When I got to the cabinet, my friends weren't there. Nor was anyone I was playing against earlier. I could do nothing but crawl outside. So I did. Then I saw the most shocking thing of all. The parking lot was empty. Entirely empty. No cars, the street lights were turned off, and I had zero clue what was happening. I felt so exposed. In danger. My biggest fear was anxiety about not being prepared. But I couldn't prepare for this experience at all. I thought to call my friends, and then it hit me. My phone wasn't in my pocket, nor was my wallet. I tried the doors to get back inside to find that they were locked from the outside. Now the panic really set in. I was basically paralyzed by fear and confusion. Then, the white Prius I recognized pulled up. It was a very concerned Rod and Ben that picked up my crap heap of a body and gently put it into the car. I woke up on Rod and Ben's couch at their duplex. He was making sure I wasn't gonna die, I guess. Rod asked what happened, and I described the events of the night. Rod suggested I was drugged, either by the water or the orange tequila. In the glow of the neon, it was hard to tell, but he swore that the drinks had a hard red color, like cranberry, and they didn't taste like tequila or liquor at all. He was right, but the whole thing was so vivid. I never felt so out of place. I asked about his night, and he was surprised to hear what happened after I went to get water. They played a few games with a guy that we know that plays Tekken, and then left to go to the bathroom, which was bright and nothing like what I experienced in the Kmart dimension. They then did some parking lot pimping with said Tekken player, drinking straight Hennessy, and then they danced the rest of the night. In fact, the event was still happening. It was only a little past midnight then. Ben returned to the event via Uber. Also, Rod was allegedly sober driving me here. Allegedly. So I asked Ron to FaceTime Ben. Sure enough, the party was still going on, and it looked like Ben was going to hook up with someone. Catwoman. That was enough of reality being a fever dream for one night. I passed out. When I next opened my eyes, sunlight was gently moving into the room, and while my head hurt, the room wasn't spinning. A woman I didn't recognize wearing nothing but one of Ben's Dragon Ball Z t-shirts approached me. She placed my wallet and cell phone on my chest, objects that at the time were heavy enough to affect my breathing. She said, "Sorry about your clothes again. Here's your cash back from your wallet to replace them. That's not going to dry clean." Then she kissed my forehead before turning away. I summoned every bit of strength I had left in my left hand as she was walking away. I grabbed her wrist. I think I did it hard, but as we're learning, at least in this story, I am an unreliable narrator. Hey bitch, I didn't even get to eat any pizza because of you. She said, that's fair. She then loudly banged Ben, got dressed, and took me to Little Caesars where she was trying to talk about the details of her one-night relations with one of my best friends. After this, browsing my phone to see if everything was on the up and up, I saw a new number labeled Catwoman. I didn't call it, but I kept it saved, just in case I feel like going through the mental prep required to stick my joystick in her D-pad.
When the Lights Go Out was written by Dead Palette, narration by Dead Palette, editing, mastering, and original music by Abysme. Comprehensive links below. YouTube.com/Creepypasta is a collaborative channel. Please subscribe if you want to follow our content. If you want to support the channel, please consider liking, commenting, and sharing this video with like-minded members of the community.